Welcome. This is Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Schwartz, and joining me today to recap a much longer soccer season than usual with the English Premier League, and we'll touch on La Liga as it regards my Barcelona fandom, because I'm very upset how the league turned out this year after we, as Kyle said on the pre-show, bottled it. But joining me today to break that all down is the great and powerful Kyle Milner. Kyle, how are you today?
I'm living the dream. Doing great. How about you?
Yeah, we're okay over here. This is the first recording from the new Schwartz house. I have a makeshift studio here, so we are living. We have successfully moved in, and yeah, my room is still a bunch of boxes. So I know something you went through recently as well.
Not me. I was not home at the time, thankfully. But yeah, I did just do that as well.
Yeah. Our families were the first to get out of the great cornfields north Ridgeville, so here we are. We're moving along. But you're over at Bowling Green, working with the soccer team right now, and such, as you have for the past 4 years. And as you were telling me before we hit the record button, they're still proceeding as if there's going to be a fall season, which is interesting.
As of right now, yes. Hopefully the light gets brighter at the end of the tunnel. But everything's up in the air. We're playing, I think all of the NCAA is on a big waiting game.
So. Yeah. It's certainly weird times in regards to college athletics for sure, especially with football going to mostly conference-only schedules, which I still don't think makes sense for a lot of different ways, but we already did a show on that. So let's transition to the English Premier League. And, the top of the league wasn't that interesting this year with Liverpool dominating, with your City getting, I would say, more unlucky than being bad or not to the level of their expectations. Because you actually look, and City actually had a 15 goal better difference than Liverpool did in terms of their games and scored over 100 goals this season. So, I think that'll be a title challenge next year, but I guess we should pay a little bit of tribute to a strong Liverpool side, right?
Yes, I agree. And at times, I've said this before with people I've talked to, I think that Liverpool's a better overall team than Man City is. We may have the better quality, but they are the more cohesive group. And I pay all credit to Klopp. People have been counting him out, but his strategies, pushing those guys, the camaraderie within that team is what led them to this championship.
Yeah, I just feel like Man City will go out, and you guys will go out and get another premium defender, whether it'll be someone like Koulibaly from Napoli or something like that, and could just run over the league next year. Even though I think there might be a fun title race next year with some of the other teams that made the Champions League. I'm not sure how you feel about your boys possibly coming back next year to challenge Liverpool, because it did seem like they got fatigued towards the end of the season, especially in the post-pandemic. Granted, they won the league already, but I don't know how much stock you put into that performance at the end of the season.
I think it was just a little bit of complacency. You're so many points up, the league's already locked up. You're just waiting to hoist the trophy, and there's no real motivation other than you're playing for form. But that only goes so far. That's just not much to play for at that point.
Yeah, it's very true. I still would say, though, I think Manchester City are probably the favorites for the Champions League in the coming month, which will start, I believe, next week again. We have the second legs for those who didn't get to complete the round of 16, including City, right, against Real Madrid next weekend. So I would still put them, just as what you said, just the pure talent. I think they're the most talented side in Europe, probably.
Yeah, but also with that, I think we were playing for form as well, not so much the league, since our position was pretty much locked. Unfortunately, our foes for next weekend, Real Madrid, are in pretty good form, as Barcelona should know. So yeah, it should be a good game. We're sitting in a pretty good spot with 2 away goals. So
right, yeah. In regards to the other Champions League spots, as Liverpool and Manchester City will be in the Champions League, especially after Manchester City's appeal was approved by CAS. So congratulations to you. You get European football again. Good job. You avoided wrongdoing again, somehow. But we have Manchester United, who suddenly finished in third after being, I believe, in sixth or fifth before the season restarted. So they went on a tear of form. Continuing their hot form, actually, from the previous pre-pandemic season. I keep referring to that, even though in America we still have the pandemic. In Europe, it's mostly, I think, a little bit taken better care of. So that is why I refer to that. Don't come at me, people. Chelsea finished in fourth. They retained their position they had before the season restarted on some uneven form, but that is the story of their season for Frank Lampard's first year in charge. And then Leicester, who were the ones challenging Liverpool for most of the year, then fell into third place after City woke up and finished outside the Champions League, which I think it's tough. I mean, we can talk about all three of these teams because I think they all had very interesting seasons. But my hot take on Leicester, which may not be that hot of a take, is that if you tell Leicester previously before the season starts that you're going to finish in fifth, they're going to be happy about it. You know, that's a good goal to have for a club like Leicester, especially when you're finishing above Tottenham and Arsenal and those kind of clubs. But at the same time, you know, you were in second for so long of the season and then third, and to drop out of the Champions League and that money entirely has to be very disappointing for the club.
Definitely, I agree. I think since Brendan Rodgers has been appointed, that club has grown massively with all the losses that they've taken in recent years due to the transfer market. So fifth, like you said before the season, seems like a very successful season, but to drop as much as they did for Chelsea and Man U to find very good form after their restart, it's just unlucky.
Yeah, I mean, a 4-1 loss to Bournemouth for Leicester at one point, 2-1 loss to Everton, draw against Brighton, coming back from the restart, draw against Watford. I mean, they lost to Norwich in February. I mean, yeah, City
lost to Norwich.
They did. I remember that everyone's like, Norwich is going to stay up, and then they didn't. It was brutal. Yeah, that's one of three of Norwich. That's a third of or a seventh of Norwich's points for the season. Right there was that game against Man City. So Manchester United really caught fire throughout even February and March. They went on an unbeaten run, and then again when the season started up again. I mean, Bruno Fernandes, it seems like, completely changed the complexion of their side. Paul Pogba came back finally and looked really strong, leading them to a final day victory over Leicester to clinch that Champions League position. What do you make of Manchester United's season now? Because people are, and I've even brought it up possibly, is that, you know, they have the attacking chops right now with Bruno Fernandes, with Rashford playing in the 10 spot now, and they have people like Martial still, who is scoring goals for fun, and even Mason Greenwood coming up now through the ranks. What do you think of them, you know, finishing in third now and possibly positioning them for the title? Do you think that's a step too far from them now? Just the return to the Champions League is fantastic as well.
No, I definitely don't. I said this throughout the season. Like, you're finally getting those feelings again where it's Man City, Man U, just contending both at the same time. You get those like 2011, 2012, 2013 feelings of just the uneasiness in Manchester. So, and it started off with a season of a lot of distractions, I'd say. Pogba was, they're just kind of playing the waiting game. Their midfield was kind of lackluster, kind of playing. I mean, you're playing Matic, and you have maybe Mata playing the 10. You're just not going to get things done. And I think it took Bruno Fernandes coming back and giving Pogba kind of a wake-up call, like, this is it right here, to kind of spark them and get them going. And I don't think they're going to stop. I think this transfer window coming up, you're going to see some money spent by a lot of the top six. Possibly a Sancho to Manchester United. I really hope not, but I think this could spark to a consistent three-headed race, possibly four.
Yeah, I think Marcus Rashford really took a leap this year too. And I know we had a dinner recently where you pointed out the soccer coach you're going to be in the future. That you noticed this is that they completely changed his position. Ole Gunnar did throughout the season. Do you want to touch on that too? Because he really started to come on of late in terms of his form.
Are you referring to him not being a striker?
Exactly, because that's what he was.
Okay.
That's what they were playing him for a while, if I'm correct.
That is correct, and I believe I referred to a old Mourinho interview. Rashford is just like kind of his mentality. He's always grown up and been a goal scorer, so mentally he believes that he's a striker, but technically we'll leave it at that. Technically, he fits in that system more as a winger. So I think them moving him out there and allowing Martial to go through the middle really opened them up. It allowed him to be in more 1v1 situations and create as well as score goals. So I think a big move for Man U this offseason would be to find a real number 9. I think that would unlock their team's potential and give them depth. So
yeah, and that's not Jadon Sancho, right? Sancho's also a winger, so that'd be interesting because I know that's the player they've been the most linked to out of anybody throughout the transfer window. I'm not sure who they could find that would be a suitable striker that I'm trying to think of. I mean, there's always strikers, right, that you always find from some league, but I mean, there's none that comes to my head right now that they've been talked about possibly purchasing,
Not off the top of my head, but I mean, you can't help but look at the other side of the pitch for Man U and see all the holes there. So they've got a couple things to fill. I'm curious to hear your opinion on David De Gea.
Yeah, he. I feel like on one hand he gets a lot of negative attention, more than he deserves, in the sense that he's been dependable for a while in terms of he's been at the top of his game for a long time. But I mean, some of his howlers are just, like mistakes I would make in goal. And I haven't played goalie since I was 11. So, like, I understand that, and it's just so tough because I also think, how many goalies... I mean, this is maybe something you could expand on since you played the position for so long. But how many goalies would you actually take in front of De Gea in and out every day? I would say Ter Stegen at Barcelona. I'd say Oblak at Atletico. Courtois for sure. Alisson at Liverpool. And then Ederson, obviously at City. But after that, I'm kind of, it's not the best pickings from across Europe. I mean, I'm sure some people are going to think of other names, and you're probably thinking of some too. But, like, I don't necessarily, is he outside the top 10? If he is, then Manchester United do need another solution because they should be having a top 10 goalie because they spend like a top 10 club in Europe, right? I did see that there had been rumors that they would take Oblak, so that makes sense. That's an upgrade. That's a very clear upgrade. But does that make sense to you?
Partially. I think you're still giving De Gea too much credit. We're treating him as if he's still at that same Golden Glove level that he was 2-3 years prior. But you are right in saying those big names, those could easily replace him, but they're not logical, possibly, because they're all in pretty good spots and with pretty good teams in their career. I don't think, honestly, you need to look very far. You have a Dean Henderson who at Sheffield is one of the top teams in keeping clean sheets in the league, and it's blasphemy. Like you wouldn't even they being in the place that they are now. You look at that position, and that's a tremendous season in Sheffield standards just coming up. So I don't think you need to look very far. I think it's a simple thing of we bring him back to Manchester United and spark that competition again. But I could ask you right now, who's Man U's number 2, and you might not be able to tell me.
Oh, I just pulled it up. That's why it's Sergio Romero, right?
Correct.
Still? Man, I thought he retired. But the Dean Henderson thing is something that's a very good point. And as you highlighted with Sheffield, they came up this year with their unorthodox 3-back, center-back, pushing forward style. They finished in 9th. They were contending for the Champions League for a good portion of the season. And to your credit, with the defense, they allowed only the 4th least goals of the season, behind the top 3 of Liverpool and the 2 Manchester clubs, just over a goal a game. So to your point, I mean, Dean Henderson is a very big part of that, and he's only 23, and so I think it does make sense if I were to see that they sold De Gea, didn't get a goalie in return, and they were rolling with Dean Henderson for the year, I think it would make sense. I think that's a lot of pressure on him, but I mean that's how this happens, right? I mean, Ter Stegen had a lot of pressure on him as a kid, coming up when Barcelona bought him, and eventually he had a couple rough seasons, and now he's arguably the best goalkeeper in the world, or the second best at the very least. So I think at some point you're right. I mean, I don't think the situation between De Gea and the club is going to last much longer. I mean, it's got to have a resolution soon, right?
I think so. I think his time there is coming to an end. See him.
I will say though, De
Exit
Gea,
the Premier League, perhaps.
What'd you say?
I said these next couple of years you could see an exit from David De Gea from the Premier League.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he'll go to like Newcastle or something, or like PSG. Seems like that was a rumor for a while, wasn't it? But
possibly going home to Spain. Who knows?
Could be. De Gea, though, is, I think we can agree, a little bit better than his Spanish counterpart in London for the Blues of Chelsea, Kepa. I mean, I don't even know where to begin, but what do you make of Chelsea's just roller coaster season under Frank Lampard?
Personally, I give a lot of credit to Frank Lampard. I think he, like you said, it was a roller coaster of a season, but I think that he dealt with it in the best way that he could, with the transfer ban, relying a lot on his young players. And I think that confidence in the confidence in those players is what brought them out of their shells and what made them so successful. At the same time, there's still those holes. Like you said, Kepa. I personally lost a bit of respect for him before Lampard was even appointed, when Sarri was there and he wouldn't come off the pitch because pride got the best of him, I guess. And that says a lot about his character and as not only a player but a person. So I can't imagine, especially with all the speculation going around, that he'll be there much longer. Like you said before, Oblak, I've heard that name as well with Chelsea, so that'll be an interesting transfer window to see what happens with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Chelsea conceded 54 goals, which, to put that in perspective, Liverpool conceded 33, City 35, Man U 36. Leicester, who finished behind them, 41, Tottenham 47, Wolves 40, Arsenal 48, Sheffield 39. You actually have to get down to 11th when Southampton conceded 60 to get to a team that conceded more than Chelsea in their top ranks. I mean, that's not all Kepa. I mean, much has been made about how bad Chelsea's defending has been, despite decent play from people like Rudiger and stuff like that. But I mean, they just need investment completely on the back end of their squad. And what's funny is, I believe Frank Lampard's been on record, at least I saw, has been saying he wants more attacking. He wants more attackers, which I think is their exact opposite problem that they need to address. It looks like, let's see if I do. Yeah, they scored the third most goals in the league for the season, so I'm not sure exactly what kind of play that is. I mean, it is Chelsea, so they can buy whatever they want. But I definitely think they need more investment on the back end if they want to have a more sustained challenge next year. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more in the spine of their team rather than their defense as a whole. So Rudiger has been solid. I think it's that counterpart to him that'll be very key to their success, as well as Kepa getting better or a Kepa replacement. I think Zuma was just kind of thrown in. He's been with Chelsea before, and he's proved that he's not that guy. So I think that he's someone that can or should take a seat and be a good replacement for them. But yes, I think that's something with Conte sitting in front of them that they really need to look at and reassess.
Yeah, for sure. I agree completely. And especially with, the season being so, wild, just in the nature of it with the pandemic, but also like how young, the squad was this year, really, mentioning people like Zuma, like another center back, Christensen, who has been trying to come up and break through the squad for a while. Pulisic himself, Tammy Abraham at the 9, Mason Mount broke out this year. So, I mean, and even the resurgence of Ross Barkley, which I don't think anybody could have seen coming this season. But, I mean, they do have a lot of pieces, and obviously they've already brought in some attacking reinforcements, and Timo Werner, who's very, very good striker, and he'll do a timeshare with Tammy Abraham, I would assume. And then also, I'm going to try to get this, Hakim Ziyech, a stud winger to come in and replace, I believe, Pedro is going to be leaving, and I think Willian is also possibly on the way out. So just getting younger, but also I would think those two players are improvements over Pedro and Willian, despite Willian's contributions to the squad over the years. So it's going to be interesting because, I mean, I could see Chelsea contending next year, but it just depends what they do in the back end. I mean, like I said, Timo Werner is a great player. Ziyech is great. Pulisic, I mean, what we're going to talk about here in a second, he broke out this year in an amazing way. But, without that spine, I mean, they're just not going to be able to compete with City, with Liverpool, and with Manchester United.
Does Giroud stay?
I mean, he's now the third striker, right? Behind Tammy and Werner.
Is he the second striker now? I'm just not sure. Tammy had a great start to the season, but since the restart came back, Giroud's been playing a lot of minutes.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and he scored important goals for them this year as well. So yeah. It's not like he's just been hanging on here. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, he's played a lot of minutes, 7 goals in 17 games. I mean, it's a pretty good record there. Yeah, I don't know.
That'll all depend on what Timo can bring to replace his game.
Yeah.
If he can do that, then Giroud will probably be on the move. Poor guy, because he did play well, but
yeah, I mean, Timo's lit the Bundesliga on fire the past couple of years. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he did the exact same at Chelsea.
Speaking of Bundesliga strikers, how do you feel about this Ballon d'Or being canceled?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird decision, isn't it? Because every league except for France finished. So I don't really understand why they felt the need to cancel. Do you think it's because... A deep conspiracy here is that it's because they want Messi to win again and get too many over Ronaldo. Because Messi would have won this year.
You think?
He had for all of Barcelona's struggles, he had a 20-goal and 20-assist season in La Liga. That's unheard of. Nobody does that. I'll fact check myself. I'm 97% sure I saw that graphic come up. I mean,
I was hoping you'd pick up on my the ball I dropped about Bundesliga strikers. There was a certain one that had quite the tear this season.
Yeah, you're talking about Lewandowski, right?
Correct.
I mean, I wouldn't hate that one. I don't know. I obviously I haven't watched too much Bundesliga, so I don't want to speak on uninformed things. We're only a facts only podcast here. But I just feel like, I mean, Messi's literally the only reason Barcelona finished second, and of course with no Euros or anything like that this year. I mean, if Lewandowski would have performed really well with, I don't even know if Poland qualified for the Euros with Lewandowski, but I mean they must have because it's 24 teams now. So yeah, but yeah, that was my initial instinct. But I don't know. It would have been weird, but it doesn't really make sense to cancel it, right?
No, I don't think so. I think even with the French league canceling, you have enough from that. It's just PSG. I mean, you're not looking farther than that as far as Ballon d'Or goes.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure how that decision makes sense, but as far as Lewandowski goes, 34 goals in 31 games.
Yeah. It's either his or Messi's award for sure. Or at least it should have been. Messi had 25 goals and 21 assists in La Liga, I just found. But, no, yeah, if it would have went to Lewandowski, I would not have been upset, especially because his team did win his league this year again. So that does have to factor in some way, which would have been funny because that would have been, I guess Luka Modric won a couple years ago, but another breaking of the Ronaldo-Messi duopoly, right? And now that's not going to happen, which is still such a weird decision. But
do you think we're getting to that point where it's kind of like the NBA and we're sick of giving LeBron the MVP? Do you think we're getting there?
I mean, Messi himself has been changing his game. Like I said, he's been definitely taking a deeper role and getting more assists and such like that. And that's especially because Barcelona's become weaker, just in general in the midfield the past couple of years. So I don't know if it's necessarily that, but also, like in a way, like the difference between, for instance, this year with LeBron, right, and Giannis, is that, LeBron's always so good, but his teams are also really good. And of course, Barcelona's really good, but it's not the same as when Messi was at his peak, Barcelona wasn't competing for the title on the final day of the season. I would be shocked if they beat Bayern Munich in the Champions League coming up, if they get past Napoli even this upcoming weekend. So I don't necessarily think it's that, but I also just think in general, it's tough because LeBron, as he did for many series with the Cavs back in the day, he can just take over. Whereas Messi's takeover might get him one goal in a game, and that's that. So it's very, I feel like it's a little bit of a difficult situation. Do you see what I mean there?
I gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I also just think Ronaldo going to Juventus has left him out of the light. Like, at the end of the day, who really cares? Serie A is the fourth most popular league in the world as well. So unless he makes noise in the Champions League, I mean, that's that, which he can do. So who knows? But how do you feel about Pulisic? I mean, he's lighting it up at the end of the season there. That was very encouraging after a rocky start for him in London.
I think he's really coming out of his own. You hear Lampard talk a lot. He doesn't say very much. He's a very quiet, humble guy in terms of the Chelsea roster. I think he's just been sitting and absorbing, and you're starting to see it come full circle. I mean, you saw that one highlight of him and Giroud talking before the game in the tunnel, and him just executing. I think he's one of those guys who just puts his head down and does what he needs to do.
Yeah, he's really come on fire late, and I mean, it's really exciting for us Americans too. I think being such invested European soccer fans for the better part of a decade now, which sounds weird to say, but it's also true. But just that we now have this player that is at the peak of his fitness, at the peak of probably not at the peak of his abilities, actually not yet, but just found his footing. He's at one of the most premier clubs in England and in Europe, and he's lighting it on fire. And I mean, it's going to be really exciting to see him play in the red, white, and blue as well throughout the World Cup and stuff like that because he really is a star. I think the comparisons to Eden Hazard though are a little premature. Don't think they're the same player.
I agree. I think that Pulisic is more of a, and I kind of see this in Foden as well. They're both like their first look is to go to goal.
Yeah.
If they can't get that, then we're going to find a path. But they're very direct players. If they see a window, they're going to go for it. I think that's why you've seen so much production from Pulisic.
Yeah. And his speed is just remarkable to be able to do that. There was a goal he scored. It might have been his most recent one, but where, like you said, he just put his head down, just took it, literally just blew past the guy and roofed it into the side netting and the or upper netting, on the near post. And it was just like, yep, this kid is special for sure. So it's really exciting that he came out. I mean, he didn't even come out of America, did he? He went to Dortmund as a kid, so but still, we get to claim him as our own. Another London club that I really want to talk about, and then we can kind of run through some of the mid-table stuff here before we talk more about the bottom, because the bottom became really interesting as the season wore down. I said pre-show, I have no clue what to make of Tottenham. You kind of agreed. Would you like to try to make sense of it first, or would you like me to give the first attempt?
I think it'd be fun for you to go first.
Okay. So, I don't know how many people have read some of my soccer stuff or reading some of the Schwartz reports thing I was doing for a little bit there. I hate Jose Mourinho with a passion, though. I hate that. I mean, I understand why they fired Poch, and I think for American sports fans, maybe first getting into the Premier League, they're like, wow, this guy led them to the Champions League final last year, which is a historic high for the club. And they axed him halfway through the season. It's like, yes, this is how this works in soccer. There's such a short leash for these guys all the time. So I understand that. But Mourinho, I mean, goodness, he just devastates clubs at some points, and he's done it all over the continent at this point. So when they brought him in, I was very upset. I felt like this was going to be ruined, and obviously, it started to go downhill with the fact that Harry Kane got injured, Son was injured, and the pandemic actually helped them in regards to that because Harry Kane was able to come back, as was Son on the wing there. They ended up finishing sixth, which feels completely wrong. And like for Wolves, I think, who are one of the more consistent teams, to get beat out by goal difference for sixth seems ridiculous. But here we are. And I mean, I feel like too, though, Jose is good at riding the ship for like a half season, as he's done at a couple things. He did bring up their league position significantly. He got some tough results, especially over Arsenal and stuff when Arsenal were having some momentum there. I just feel like it's not going to be sustainable next year, The squad is talented enough to make a run at the Champions League next year, but I just don't think Mourinho's the right man for the job in regards to that.
I can agree. I think based on his recent appointments, you've seen that he's not a long-term solution. Like you said, I think he's very short-term. He'll fix, like this half season, he brought him back up. I think you may see them contend for a trophy next year, but I don't see much more than that. They won't contend for the Prem. They may win or decide some big matches, but I don't think they're going to contend for the big trophy. I think you may see them in the FA Cup or perhaps Europa. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that's that.
I feel like we've talked about this before, just you and I privately, but I think it's important too is that, when we talk about Manchester City, right, and their development as a club, they invested a lot of money very quickly in Robinho and transfers like that. But once they started to see some success, the smart thing they did was start to invest in their youth academy very heavily. And now you see some of the fruits of that labor, because you mentioned Phil Foden and Zinchenko and other players like that who are coming up now. So Tottenham broke through a couple years ago, finishing second to Leicester during their title season 5-6 years ago. And I haven't necessarily seen a lot of investment into that to build that sustainability yet, and that kind of concerns me because you look at a club like Arsenal that we'll talk about next, but that when their luck started to run out and they hadn't built that stuff, and even though they moved into a new stadium, the Emirates, as Tottenham just did this past season, you need that sustainability from your own academy and such like that to keep that momentum going, And I'm not sure that Tottenham has that yet, and that's definitely not coming under Jose. Jose is not that manager, as you said.
Yeah, I think City's a special case because you see, like you mentioned, Arsenal. I think that's been reigning over their heads from a financial standpoint for a long time now. They kind of rushed into that new stadium, and now here they are. They want to bring in new players, make those big signings that'll lift them towards the top four, and that they can't do it. And I think Tottenham will run into similar problems. I think it's kind of tough to compare them to City because, and I've said this before, I was never a fan of City for their front office or for their money. And it's an endless amount of money. You mentioned Foden, and now Eric Garcia is coming up, and we had Raheem Diaz before that, who went to Real Madrid. You can't compare it too much. I think Tottenham will run into this hole, and they'll be in it for a little while now, being that their stadium is tremendous. I mean, I believe they have their own brewery in it, so just kind of insane. But I think it'll hold them back for some time now.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So, and I hope not, but I mean, it just kind of seems like that's the trend that's been going on the past year, at least after their mightily successful season 2 years ago. But Wolves end up finishing in 7th. They're contending for the Champions League at some point. Raul Jimenez, another strong season up front for them. Adama Traore, former Barcelona youngster. I'm so upset they let him go. He had an awesome season, one of the best players in the Premier League by who scored numbers I remember seeing. But they ended up finishing in 7th. I'm not sure if that's a Europa League spot or not. My app is showing me it's not. They might be maybe in qualifying. I don't know. But I'd say in terms of a season successful for Wolves, and also possibly looking to continue to build off that momentum depending on how their transfer window goes.
Yeah, I think they did quite well, and to place 7th and with the teams above them, I think it would have been a huge wake up call for them to take Tottenham's position. But yeah, I think they really did well this season. Like you mentioned, Adama Traore and Jimenez, they did very well. I believe they have some very good talent coming up.
For sure. How much do you want to talk about Arsenal?
We can go into it.
Because, I mean, Arteta, I don't think it's a lot of anything is his fault, because it's very clear what Emery was trying to do is not working early on in the season. They end up in 8th, which isn't horrible, but it's not Arsenal standards. They have some interesting young talent. I know Saka started to come on. Aubameyang had a great finish up front, but there's been a lot of rumors they're going to lose him in the summer. Guendouzi played a lot of games for them, and then you have the back line of David Luiz struggling, obviously, as he does. But they are in the FA Cup final tomorrow. We're recording this on Friday the 31st, so who knows? It could all end with some silverware, which would be the most Arsenal thing ever, is to actually win a trophy after the highs and lows of this season.
I think that'd be a relief from Arteta's standards. You were kind of gifted a quite terrible team, but I think he made somewhat of the most of it. Like, he started this new year in quite good form, unbeaten, for up until most of their restart, I want to say, and then they kind of, like you said, David Luiz found his true form. and they fell off a little bit. They gave a gift to Aston Villa, which we'll get to later, I'm sure. And then we're able to beat Man U. So, I mean, it's been a roller coaster of a season for them. They have so many holes to fill. I think Aubameyang, in my opinion, will stay.
Wow, that's bold.
Which will be huge for them.
Yeah, I mean, losing their best player with so many holes to already fill would be devastating for Arteta, especially when he needs investment, and I don't think they're going to get that much this season from the window and such like that. So I wonder how long they'll give him a leash for, because he is a club legend, right? And he seems to be a very competent manager, but I mean that squad and just overall club structure just needs overhaul. It really does. I mean, they haven't been in the Champions League in how many years now? 3, 4, 5? That's an eternity by the Gunners standards.
I think, though, that them not being in those big tournaments, especially this year where they're not even in Europa, will be huge for their development. With players like Bukayo Saka, you have Nketiah, Gabriel Martinelli coming up through their academy, which is unlike, like we talked about Tottenham before, they're in this hole where they just got the stadium. I think Arsenal's starting to kind of see that light, but they have these players they're holding on to, like a Mesut Ozil or a David Luiz, which was kind of brought into. I believe David Luiz is brought in a temporary purpose. I don't think. I mean, we haven't seen him in his true form since his Chelsea days. Maybe possibly PSG, who knows? But yeah, I think they're starting to see the light. You even have a backup goalkeeper like Emiliano Martinez, who showed great form towards the end of the season. And I think Arteta has shown that he can win those big games. Like I just mentioned, they just beat Man U. He's gonna figure it out. I think you give him a short time. This is only a short look at what his career as a manager could look like, and I think it could be bright. Maybe not for my biased opinion of him being on our city staff, but who knows.
Yeah, win over Wolves, win over Liverpool in the past couple weeks to close out the season. So, and obviously in the FA Cup final as well, with a victories over City and Sheffield United. So, yeah, I mean, game-to-game manager, he seems to know what he's doing. So, yeah, hopefully that youth investment keeps going well for the club overall, and they can integrate more players into there. All right, I want to run through the mid-table here because, honestly, a lot of these teams have been here for a while, and we could talk about a couple of things from them. Sheffield United, we already discussed. Great to see them back. Great to see them coming up and performing really well for Chris Wilder. Burnley. 10th feels exactly right for their club. They're just here. They're here for the long haul. Southampton in the 11th. Danny Ings had a resurgence this season. I believe he netted 16, 17 goals. So that was a name that I hadn't seen in a while. But he makes a big return to the Premier League. Everton in 12th. Poor Everton. Moving on. Newcastle 13th. They couldn't score. Crystal Palace couldn't score either. 14th, but somehow they both had enough points to do that, and a pretty strong defense for both those sides as well. Brighton in 15th, barely pulled away. Well, not barely, but pulled away eventually from the relegation race that they might have been stuck in, but they earned enough points. Is there anything you want to touch on from those 5 or 6 teams from their seasons?
Danny Ings had 22 goals, by the way. I just had to
look that up. Okay.
He had quite the season this year.
I shortchanged him.
You're all good. I'd shortchange him too. To be honest, name the last couple teams you mentioned again. Did we go all the way down to Aston Villa or no?
I stopped at West Ham. So Brighton, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Everton. I mean, I feel like we know a lot of the stories of these clubs. Everton's just stuck in a rut. They had similar problems to, I would say, Arsenal, actually, in a lot of ways this season. Newcastle, just had a weird year. They would win some games by a lot, and then they wouldn't score at all for periods. And their new owners just pulled out, if I'm correct, right?
Correct. I was just about to bring that up. I just saw that headline before we started chatting, which I thought was very interesting. I was going to be curious and kind of relieved to see another team with some Saudi Arabian money, but I guess that'll just be us for a little bit.
I guess we
won't see that Mbappe transfer anytime soon.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I believe they cited the Premier League was taking their time on it. They never officially rejected him. The potential owners pulled out of buying Newcastle, but they were checking into the human rights background, I believe, and that type of stuff with his organization or something like that. Which, I mean, I guess the Premier League then has higher standards than FIFA after what's been happening in Qatar with the World Cup and the building of that. If anybody has seen any of that, those articles, then you know what I'm talking about, because it's truly terrible.
I agree. I think Newcastle, like you said, they've had a very up and down year. I think they're one of those clubs that they're like 13th is a very respectable position for them. But I think they're going to come out and they're going to play a Liverpool or a Man City or a Tottenham, and they're going to give you a good game. They're going to surprise you, and they're going to win that strange result. I think that's the kind of club they are. If we look at some of the other clubs, Crystal Palace is kind of the same way. They're always going to give you a tough game, but 14th obviously is a respectable position. To see Everton above those two clubs is kind of surprising, because you kind of went the whole season just like wondering where they were. Not to be too disrespectful to them, but they're not really a big headline club. Brighton, I don't really have much to say. Good for them. I'll leave it at that. West Ham, you're lucky. That's all I have to say. To be in 16th out of the relegation zone, I just don't know what they're going to keep for the next Prem season. I don't know how much longer a Declan Rice can take playing there.
Yeah.
Just for his growth, I think the next couple of years you could see him on the move. David Moyes just got done being paid by Man U. I don't know how much more production he's going to be able to give you other than keep you out of the relegation zone. It's just a mess.
Yeah, West Ham especially, I mean, they spend like a club that wants to be challenging for Europa League and such in the next couple of years. They spend like they're Wolves, and
I agree.
They are not. They are not yet. They need some more time.
Definitely.
The other thing I wanted to say for these teams, like if you cut off at Everton at 12, all right, so you go Newcastle on down. It wouldn't surprise me if with one bad transfer window, though, we're looking out and seeing like a Newcastle in the relegation zone towards the end of the year. We're seeing a West Ham or a Brighton. Well, obviously West Ham because they were in the relegation zone for a while, but Crystal Palace maybe a little bit. But like with these type of teams, one bad transfer window all of a sudden could sink him.
Oh, definitely. And Newcastle even, I think some of their transfers are starting to show. Like Almiron kind of came into his own a little bit after coming from the MLS, but I don't think you're going to see them fluctuate too much from that middle of the table. Right. Yeah. You're really lucky. You're really just lucky to be here.
For sure. Oh, for sure. Especially West Ham, I'd say the luckiest. I mean, like you said, David Moyes. I mean, goodness, if you're still employing David Moyes and you're surviving, that's incredible. I mean, only 2020 could have that happen, truly.
I personally like Pellegrini.
Yeah, they axed him pretty quick. Yeah. Yeah, Pellegrini, I mean, he's one that gets crapped on a lot, too. But I think he's had if you look at his career overall, I don't think he's too bad. But, yeah. So I think our favorite thing from the season possibly is Aston Villa surviving. I think possibly for you for sure because it looked dreadful for a while. They're in 19th. a significant amount of points back. And typically you need a good 38, 39 points, 1 point a game to survive. But Villa did it with only 35 this year. And that's just in their first year back in the Premier League. What do you want to say for your Claret and Blue, who are probably your second favorite team, right? Because Brad Friedel, if I'm correct.
Correct, and James Milner was there for a short spell.
There we go.
But I think John McGinn said it best. Before the restart, you had players like Douglas Luiz who couldn't speak a lick of English, and so their cohesiveness as a team was just shot. You weren't going to get anywhere, and I think Corona was almost a blessing to a team like Aston Villa, to where they could regroup. Douglas Luiz could learn a couple key words, and they were off and running. I think him personally, you're going to see a tremendous growth, and I think that's where City put that buyback clause on him, to where he could be going back to the Sky Blues. But I think the next couple of years, though, you could also see their downfall in the transfer market, where players like John McGinn or Jack Grealish, especially, who could be gone in this transfer window, could be leaving and putting them in a bit of trouble. But it was nice to see them kind of come together as a team, and they attribute a lot of their success post restart to the coronavirus. Just they're able to develop that sense of camaraderie and depth as a squad.
Yeah, especially, you mentioned the transfer market. I don't know if Jack Grealish will stay or not. He's certainly talented enough to go play for... I feel like someone like Leicester could really use him, but then again, they have James Maddison in that type of role that he would play. So, maybe an Everton or something like that could certainly spend 20, 25, 30 million pounds on him should they choose. I'm not sure what his real valuation is. That's what feels right to me, coming from that type of team like that. But if Villa can keep him, if they can keep McGinn, if they can keep Tyrone Mings in the center back position there, and they can get, because I feel like a lot of the first year coming back into the Premier League is just surviving, right? Because you don't want to go crazy with finances and have a Portsmouth thing where then you go tumbling down the table, or the leagues, I should say, more accurately. So the fact that they barely, but literally by the edge of their teeth, survived, and now they can maybe push forward here with some, not over landing spending, but try to get back to where they were, 10, 12, 15 years ago, up in that upper half of that table, as someone like Wolves and Sheffield have shown that you can do, with some smart purchases and keeping some of your core players intact and keeping them happy at the club. Did you see how, you remember the first game, actually the very first game of the restart, how the goal line technology failed with Aston Villa and Sheffield?
I did, yes. Where Neeland went to his own goal.
Yep. So Aston Villa survived by a point over Bournemouth. And Bournemouth have one better goal difference. So if that technology had worked, of course, you could play the what-if game because there were 10 games left after this. However, technically, if that goal line technology had worked then, Bournemouth would stay up instead of Villa.
Yeah, but like you said, I think in that position, you'd be treating the rest of the season a lot differently with 9 games to play.
Very true. Yeah, that's always funny, though, when people do bring that up, because it's this one thing from 3 months ago, it's yeah, but the 3 months would have played out very differently had they been in the relegation zone. And credit to Villa, draws against Everton, West Ham on the final day, beating Arsenal in the second to last game of the season, beating Crystal Palace. They got crushed by Man U, but that's not important. That's not my narrative. So draws against Sheffield United, obviously, as I mentioned. So, they did what they had to do, right? So.
Definitely. And it was tough. You started to mention some of their players, but I think coming up with a player like Tammy Abraham from the Championship, they had a player like Wesley coming from Club Brugge playing Champions League football. You bring him in and he gets injured in the beginning of the season. I think that was a huge blow to Aston Villa. definitely that, and their goalkeeping until they brought in Pepe Reina, they never really turned it around. So it was a lot of, and I pay a lot of the credit to their manager. They have a lot of faith in him, and he really came through towards the end of the season.
Yeah, they really do, and it's always the Premier League is always more fun with certain clubs in it, and that's not bashing any other teams, but just more clubs have more history and more storylines and such like that, and Villa is certainly one of those. And there's another one coming back next year, which we will get to just at the end of the show here. But we do have to do some goodbyes. It is the very sad part of the year where teams do get relegated. And this is trying to explain this to American sports fans is so crazy because people bring it up like with college football and stuff like that. If it was possible to do relegation and promotion, I mean it's a great system. It truly is because it makes. I was watching Aston Villa's game on the last day of the season when Man U was beating Leicester to clinch the Champions League. So, I mean, it does create a lot of intrigue on both ends of the table. But it's also brutal. And, I mean, for Bournemouth, Watford, very close final days of the season. It looked like Watford had played themselves out of there before they got beat by West Ham in the latter stages of the season. And we knew Norwich was going for a long time. And it just seems like they were outmatched, at least, and that they might not be back anytime soon because they ended up getting just decimated. I don't think they won. They haven't won a game since February, I believe. So just maybe the championship is more their level for the Canaries.
We tried to help them. That's all I'm going to say.
I am a little sad to see Bournemouth and Watford go. I feel like Eddie Howe did so well at Bournemouth for so long, and all of a sudden the bottom just fell out. And they certainly, Bournemouth and especially Watford too, have some key players that I think will end up being back in the Premier League next season as well.
I agree, and I have heard that Eddie Howe's name being thrown around is potentially a guy who could fill holes in maybe possibly a Tottenham or he was even linked to Arsenal when they were looking for a manager. So.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. I think players like Josh King didn't have the best season. Callum Wilson up top for the Cherries. Jordan Ibe, obviously former Liverpool player there. And then you go Watford, their captain Troy Deeney, obviously very talented. You got other guys in there, Ben Foster, the English keeper. So I do think these squads are talented, and obviously with everything going on, they probably do feel a little hard done by the fact that they did have to come back, and play and stuff like that, and really try to survive, and they weren't successful in that. But it's just. It is what it is, right? And I mean, it was a tight race, and hopefully, I think Watford and Bournemouth could make quick turnarounds. Obviously, it's easier said than done, but it should be interesting. I forgot that Deulofeu plays for Watford, so he should probably move up somewhere. Goodness, I remember that guy thought he was the answer for Barcelona's issues. But yeah, anything else you would like to say in our eulogy, Premier League current eulogy to Bournemouth and Watford?
Well, I think another player from Watford as well who had a real breakout season was Sarr. So he'll definitely, along with many other players from Bournemouth, if we could see Pookie back in the Premier League, who knows? We'll be making their way back. It'll be interesting to see. See you later, Tim Krul. Sorry to see you go, but real.
It's a name from my childhood right there. But yeah, that's that's the Premier League. And real quick, as we approach the hour mark, I do want to touch on the teams that are coming back up. Now, we know 2 out of the 3. We don't know the results of the promotion playoff just yet, but Leeds United are back in the Premier League. Finally. And it's so funny because I don't think they might have been in the Premier League, in our early youth when we were like newborns. But since we've been fans, they've never been. I'm gonna look it up real quick as I'm talking. They've never been in the Premier League, and yet I am elated that they're back just because there's so much history with the club, with people like Brian Clough and stuff like that, and just in general from everything. Let's see. Okay. Early 2000s, they were relegated, it looks like. 2003, maybe? Yeah, 2003, 2004. So yeah, we were like 5. But it's just, there's such a palpable excitement around the whole league that in the whole country that Leeds are back in the Premier League that, I mean, I think rubs off on us as well.
Yeah, I'm just excited. Maybe the next couple of years you could see James Milner going back to his boyhood club. Who knows? I'm just excited for that aspect. A lot of history there. Some new rivalries. I know Leeds is a big rival of Man U, so that'll be an interesting game to tune into this coming season.
For sure. And Bielsa, obviously. Marcelo Bielsa.
Definitely.
One of the...
As somebody who Pep looks up to.
Yeah,
one of the
most influential managers in the game who hasn't necessarily had the most success in top flights, but certainly one of the most influential for a lot of these guys, as you mentioned, Pep. And certainly a lot of, I think, of other managers would agree with that. So, finishing, and they won the championship, and they won by 10 points. So, very, very cushy lead there. In second place is West Brom. They're coming up. I don't want to say anything rude to the single West Brom fan that's listening to this. I don't know, just like, there have been more fun things, right? From other clubs. Like, I mean, West Brom, it's nice to have you back. I guess it was fun for a little bit in there a couple years ago when they were here, but I don't know. I feel like I look at this list, like Nottingham Forest ended up finishing 7th, so they're outside of the promotion spots anyway. But
an absolute choke.
Yeah, it was.
Forest.
But like some of those clubs, like I mean, Blackburn's at 11th, so they're too far away. But it would have been more fun to have other people. I'm sorry to West Brom. That sounds offensive, but hey, you deserve it. I'm glad you're here, I guess. But not going to create anything new, really, right?
just please don't bring back a Fulham to the Prem.
So you don't want Fulham back?
I do not. Just because of the last time they came, they spent a load of money, and then it was like, see you later. They're barely part of the Prem that year.
Yeah, that was rough. I do remember that. It was only a couple seasons ago, and everyone was like, yes, Fulham's back.
Andre Schurrle.
Yes, that's right. And they went down the same season, right? They got relegated immediately.
Yep.
So, well, I was watching their game yesterday, and they beat Cardiff. So now they're in the promotion final against Brentford, which is on Sunday. Is it on Monday? I'm trying to find it now. I think it's on Monday. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's some point. Oh, it's Tuesday. Tuesday at 2:45 there. The match they call the hundreds of millions of dollars it's worth to be
the
in the
most
Premier League.
Expensive game in football.
So
in sports.
Yeah, I guess this works out because I look at the table and Brentford and Fulham were 3rd and 4th, 8 points above Cardiff. So I guess that makes sense that the two most deserving teams are in that final. So you'd rather have Brentford, a complete newbie, I believe. I've never heard of them being in the Premier League before. Than Fulham.
Bring them on.
There we go. Well, do we want to talk about Barcelona here, or do we just want to call it a day here?
Well, I have a question to kind of wrap up this Prem.
Okay.
So you were a right back, and I saw this question brought up on Sky Sports. So you've got Christian Pulisic, you got a Phil Foden, and you've got a Mason Greenwood dribbling at you. Which one are you most afraid of?
So, I haven't watched too much of Phil Foden, so correct me if I wrongly attribute things to him. I feel like Pulisic is the fastest out of those, right? Those three. I mean, Greenwood obviously has bursting pace as well.
Greenwood could be up there.
Okay. Greenwood's left-footed, which is tricky if you forget that. But on the other hand, Pulisic, I believe, is ambidextrous, right?
You might have those backwards.
Okay, well, someone having the equal capability of using both their feet is a problem, because what you want to do is you want to force them out to the sideline, out to the line, and make them play across, and that way, you're playing into your center backs. But the problem is if a guy can play with both his feet, and most of these, of course, players can. Like, I'm not trying to say they're not, but if I were that level of defender, obviously then that's leveled up a bit as well. So if someone is purely, able to use both their feet to the exact same, and that unlocks a lot of different things, because then you can't force them one way or the other. You can't force them to their weak foot to try to get creative with it. So that would be my thing. I haven't watched too much of Foden, but yeah. So I mean, whichever one fits that profile, those are the ones that are the most frustrating, where they can do literally anything, because they can do right foot, left foot. And then that allows them to do any move that they want on you. You can't really force them anyway, because there's no weak point. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
So yeah, that's my thing. So I'll be American biased and say Pulisic, even though that may not be it.
Fair enough.
But yeah, but to touch on Barcelona real quick, they suck, and I hate everything about the club right now.
Wow, that's very dramatic way to leave it at that. Yeah, they've been spending some very interesting money. I know they had to, I believe, balance their books with the whole Pjanic transfer.
Yep, yeah, they had to sell Arthur by a certain day, which I liked Arthur, so that sucks. But then, as part of the deal, they had to bring in Pjanic, so we're already down however many million that cost for this season. So
they have two strikers in Griezmann and Suarez, but they're playing Griezmann as a winger,
which is not working.
Who's never played anything but a counterattack 4-4-2 his entire career.
Yep.
Yeah, your front office is imploding.
Yep.
Messi's going to move to Milan with his dad.
It's possible. I wouldn't blame Messi for leaving. Yeah, they were. Yeah, they finished the whole post-pandemic season unbeaten.
Let's be honest though. Before Messi leaves, I think Barcelona would restructure their whole entire club.
Well, they would have to. They certainly would have to. And I mean, because when Messi leaves, Suarez is probably going to go too.
Definitely.
Because they're best friends. Whether they go to the same place or not, I don't know. But those two are legitimately super close. Their families hang out and all that stuff. So whenever Messi goes, Suarez will follow shortly, which then leads to the point of that you can completely revamp the whole team, because for so long you've been playing Messi in the 4-3-3 because that's what works best, and Suarez is a very good all-around striker, so that can work. But that's the problem with Griezmann, and you have players like Frankie de Jong who don't necessarily fit into that rigid, it's not even rigid, but you know what I mean, into that system. Their talents are otherwise. So, and the thing is, Barcelona are such a giant, obviously, that they make so much money that they'll never be bad. They'll never get relegated, per se. But when you talk about it, I mean, the peak of Barcelona is challenging for the Champions League every year, feeling like they'll win, no matter who they're playing, no matter if it's Bayern, if it's City, if it's Juventus, if it's whoever. And I don't feel that way all this year. Like I said earlier, I would genuinely be surprised if they made it past the quarterfinals. So, and as you said, the presidents had issues, Bartomeu. The board is having issues. So, and the club's values have been lost, I think, with the transfer spending. I love Griezmann as a player. He's very hard worker defensively, and that's shown very often throughout the season. But as you said, he's completely it's not his fault. He's completely misfit right now into the league, and he's been trying to adjust, and he's had good moments because he's a great player, but it's not a system to his strengths at all or what he's known. So, and players like De Jong, same type of thing. Arturo Vidal's great, but he's a different type of midfielder there. And hopefully now, I mean, you do see some more investment in the youth academy. I mean, Ansu Fati and Ricky Puig are coming up, but Ter Stegen in the back solves a lot of problems, and he sometimes masks those problems. So, the next 5 years of Barcelona will be really interesting because the Messi era will end. I don't know if the club's ready for that, and that might be why they tried so desperately to bring back Neymar. Because bringing back Neymar and Griezmann with Suarez and Messi makes no sense. especially when Dembele's on the books. But maybe they're trying to just go from one generational superstar to another. But I don't know. And of course it's some people may hear me complaining about this and be like, okay, they finished second. They're still a top 8 club in Europe. What's your point? I mean, I'm a Detroit fan. All right, I know sports completely when I see it. This isn't going well, and soccer is such a sport where it's not like it's something where, you know, the Lions make the playoffs, I'm super excited, and then they drop down to the mid-tier, and I'm used to that. Yeah, Barcelona has won 8 of the past 11 Spanish leagues, or something like that. In this year, they completely bottled it. So they are falling, and I don't know how it gets better. So yes, this is real frustration. I'm aware that it is a little bit of complaining too much for their position for other clubs, but this is this is the facts. This is how it is right now. So I don't know.
Did you get it all out?
I think so. I think we can end the show now with that. Thank you for that therapy session. Oh man, Kyle, you're awesome. That was a ton of fun. So, and I'm excited for the Champions League to come back in a couple weeks. You know, I thought we'd get a longer break, but we're not. We're right back to it. So, and then the new season starts in September. I mean, it's gonna be insane, which is gonna be nice because who knows if we'll get football or anything. So,
who knows?
Keep it rolling, man. So keep doing your awesome work out there, Bowling Green, and I'm excited to see you in the near future.
Excited to see you too. Thanks for having me on. Love the Assist podcast. Check out their website. It's awesome. Zach's doing great things. Much love, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate the love. All right.